some of those young, exciting California innovators that have been out there, banging their head against the wall, trying to get the Walmarts and the Targets and the Costcos of the world to call them back because they had these really cool, environmentally friendly alternatives to plastic. They're finally getting calls back. There's a guy out there, I'll give you one example, who has created an alternative to styrofoam. Styrofoam, if you think about it, what is styrofoam there for? It's basically, in most cases, it's there to help you get your TV from Best Buy to your house without getting cracked or dinged. It's literally just a padding. I mean, you could wrap that TV in a blanket. I mean, it would probably do the same thing, but it's just this cheap oil-based product that pads your stuff. Well, this guy came up with an alternative that's made up of shrimp shells and cornstarch and vinegar, and it does exactly the same job of providing padding to protect appliances. TVs, appliances.
Yeah.
And unlike styrofoam, you could take those natural alternative foam, throw it off the Santa Monica Pier, and it would be completely biodegraded with no negative environmental impact within about 15 years. No toxins, it's all natural ingredients. Whereas styrofoam, as we know, breaks up into tiny pieces, it gets into the fish, it gets into the bloodstream, now all of a sudden it's in our bodies and in our water stream, and impacting our environment. So there are really great folks out there that have been coming up with the alternatives to these plastic products.
What's the cost? Is there a cost model? That's why they don't accept them? Is there a big discrepancy?
It's like so many things. You don't make the change unless you have to. I mean, I'll give you one example. The car companies, for example, didn't want the California air quality regulators to tell them that they had to switch toward more safe, lower polluting emissions technology in their automobiles. But it got to a point where kids were growing up with half of the lung capacity in South LA versus rural parts of the country. We couldn't even see the Hollywood sign because the smog was so bad. So the regulator said, you gotta switch to these lower burning technologies. They kicked and screamed, but they did it. And now we've got much cleaner burning cars, even though there's many more cars on the road, and we can actually see the Hollywood sign, even though there's a lot more traffic than there was in the 70s. When you say what's the cost, you gotta take into account the total cost, right? So yes, the imposition of that new technology did lead to a marginal increase in the cost of automobile purchases. However, what's the cost associated with all the healthcare impacts of the pollution that was caused by those cars? What are the costs that we're currently bearing as ratepayers or as cities to handle the influx of plastic waste? That's all money that's coming out of our city coffers. That means that they have less money for senior programs and school programs and parks and transportation. I mean, from my perspective, you've had these plastics manufacturers that have basically been freeloading off of the rest of us. It's not that there's not a cost associated with these products. It's just that they're not paying for the cost. We are. And it's just not fair. And so that's ultimately what this is about. It's about saying to them, look, you got to play a part in helping us to come up with solutions here. You got to come up with more environmentally friendly alternatives. And we will all benefit as a result.
If you like California Insider and you like to know what's going on in California, make sure to check out Epoch Times. This is a newspaper that started by a group of Chinese Americans because of human rights abuses in China, and now is starting to grow here. Make sure to go to the Epoch Times website and check out the California section, where you can get a lot of fresh perspectives on what's going on in California. Now let's go back to the interview. Is there a model for that, where people can do products that you can actually recycle and have benefits? Or can that industry, the ones that are making plastic bags, change in a way where they can make it degradable?
Well, this is the beauty of what we did, right? I mean, this is actually a free market model that had industry at the table negotiating, right? So they were part of the negotiations. I mean, ultimately, we say to them, here are the rules. You got to meet these rates for circularity, or you got to find another product over a runway of time. And industry, you know your products better, you know your market better, you know the technology the best. Figure it out. We all know that there are alternatives out there. They will either turn to those alternatives or they will find a way to make their current product more environmental friendly. And that process is underway. And it's part of why those innovators that I was telling you about, like the styrofoam alternatives
they're
guy,
getting
is getting the
calls.
call back, because all of a sudden these businesses are actually interested in checking out their product. People they don't change unless they have to most of the time, especially in business, because they've got these tight margins and they have a system. It's always been run a certain way, and they just don't have any incentive to change unless they have to. I mean, there was an example of some company that changed it's the resin type on its detergent bottle, just for, I think, some marginal pricing benefit, maybe it was some aesthetic thing, and that rendered the item. It used to be totally recyclable, now it's not recyclable. But again, there was no incentive for them to even think about recyclability when they were pushing these products out. And that's what we're addressing with this legislation.